On today's episode of the Locked On Texans podcast, we have to acknowledge Tytus Howard, who could be having a Pro Bowl type of year, and the right side of the offensive line. They've been monumental in Houston's success running the ball, plus Houston's third down defense, one of the best in the NFL. Why? Will and Daniil make it hard for quarterbacks to get comfortable.
You are Locked On Texans, your daily podcast on the Houston Texans. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Battle Red Nation, from H-Town to your town. Today's episode and every episode of the Locked On Texans podcast is for Texan fans all around. From my everydayers from the Himalayas, thank you for making the Locked On Texans podcast your first listen of the day and coming back to listen to myself, your Texans credentialed media member and football analyst, John Hickman. Today, we got a good one. I got a good one for you guys, so make sure you stick around as I look at reclaiming the AFC South and how that will be a fight for the Houston Texans. Both the Jags and Indy is not letting up. Houston clowned themselves in an 0-3 hole. They dug themselves in an 0-3 hole. Now they have to clown themselves out of that 0-3 hole, which they've done the last two games, right? And now they're 2-3, going to the bye week. But this will be a tough task for Houston. Defensively, we're going to have a defensive talk. The impact from the edge duos and how they've contributed to one of the better third down defenses in the NFL needs to be discussed, and we will do that on today's show. On the flip side, looking at the trench talk, the trench play from the offensive line, success starts up front with the improved offensive line play, and that's exactly where we are going to start today's show. DeMeco Ryans was asked about the improvements from the offensive line from last year to this point, and this is what he had to say.
Our offensive line they've improved, I think, just overall with how we're running the football now, just eliminating the negative run plays, allowing plays to get started. Guys are getting a hat on a hat, being where they're supposed to be. And we still have things to clean up when it comes to protections and things that are happening that we have to get fixed, that we've talked about and worked multiple times, that we still have to clean up. So it's not where it needs to be right now, but we're doing a really solid job up front. Tytus playing really good up front as well. So we got some guys doing some good things. Just got to continue to rein it in and play collectively much better. And for us, offensively, defensively, again, I always tell my coaches, like, we have to do whatever it takes that particular week to win the game. So as you saw, we had some different looks, or we went with more of a jumbo package on that week. Well, that's what we thought was best for us, right? Offensively, on the offensive line and for our defensive line, we went with heavier personnel because we thought that was the best thing for us. Our main goal this particular week was to dominate the run game, and we did that on the offensive side. Ran the ball for over 150 yards, and then on the defensive side, the guys did a really great job of stopping the run. So that was our focus. That was our game plan for the week. And again, that changes based on our opponent and who we're playing. But for me, it's any week, whatever the week is, are we doing whatever is necessary for us to win? Doesn't matter what we've done before, who's been in before, who was inactive before. It really doesn't matter. It's like, what do we need that week to win the game?
Shout out to Coach Ryans there. He talked about what does the Houston Texans need to do each week to win the game. I want to highlight the Houston Texans coaching staff led by DeMeco Ryans and in conjunction with both Nick Haley and Cole Popovich for not giving up and throwing away Juice Scruggs, former second-round pick, and former second-round pick Blake Fisher. Blake Fisher, was featured in 32 snaps for the Houston Texans against the Baltimore Ravens on Sunday, and you look at how they utilize them, that's a big reason as to why Houston was able to rush for over 150 yards on the day. Plus, Coach Ryans mentioned the lack of negative runs, which is a great thing for the Houston Texans. Only 3 runs Sunday where Houston, excluding kneel downs from Davis Mills to end the game, where Houston did not have a plus yard. So you look at -1, -1, and -3, but only 3 times did the Houston Texans run the ball, and they did not get positive yards. So they look at the improvements there. And also, listen, that was the game plan for a team that can't stop the run in Baltimore Ravens, even when they are healthy. So I appreciate the Houston Texans understanding and understanding and looking at that the advantage for Houston is to take advantage of the disadvantages of the Baltimore Ravens. And they did that pretty well. Also on the year, when I highlight the job that the right side of the offensive line has done for this team, and they perform well. 281 rushing yards on the year. On the year, Houston runs the ball for 4.4 yards per carry, but towards the right side of the offensive line, 288 rushing yards, 4.5 yards per carry, 2 TDs, 10 first downs, two of the longest runs on the year, 27 and 30, all coming on the right side of the offensive line. But running the ball is phase one of how good the offensive line, especially the right side when I talk about Tytus Howard and Ed Ingram. That's phase one of the conversation. But phase two of the conversation, we should immediately look at how they have been able to help Houston set up the play action. An underrated part of this conversation, because once Houston is able to run the ball well, then they are able to play off of that. And so specifically, when I look at how Houston did a very good job on Sunday, they had 2 touchdowns from play action. I look at the first drive and how the first drive set up the entire game for Houston. Houston goes out there 4 or 5 for 35 yards on play actions on that first drive, and including the touchdown to Xavier Hutchinson, which was a play action counter towards the right side. And Hutch was wide open on that play as well. You also look at the job that Blake Fisher served as well for Houston. It feels like this is an all-hands-on-deck approach, which is great for Houston. They're going to need everybody to really come in and leave a stamp on the game. Game by game, week to week, that's going to be the game plan, and I respect it. That's the best way to get it done, right? That's how Houston is able to put up back-to-back 100 rushing yard performances. And then we also got to account for how good C.J. Stroud has played in running the ball, recognizing their man defense. They're leaving me a rushing lane. My right side of the offensive line is giving me everything that I need. Then I'm going to do that, right? You also look at how good Nick Chubb has played in the mix as well. Nick Chubb, I thought, was outstanding for the Houston Texans on Sunday. We can't overlook his role. We know that a lot of you guys are clamoring for more Woody Marks snaps, but in Nick Chubb's role, he also was featured in fewer snaps than Woody Marks. He had 5 runs, of 5 or more yards on the day. Only 1 run of a loss of yard. He also averaged 5.5 yards per carry. Then you look at how that translates to the rest of the offensive success on the day. Houston had their season's best average yards to go on third down, 5.5 yards to go for the first down. They also had their most successful third down conversion rate of the year, 7 of 12. So running the ball has been monumental for Houston's success, right? And you also look at when Nick Chubb ran behind the right side of the offensive line Sunday, 54 rushing yards, 1 touchdown, 2 first downs, 6.7 yards per carry. This is intentional. This is decisive. This is what you want to see from Nick Caley, Cole Popovich, and D'Amico Ryans. Let's hit them fast, let's hit them hard, and let's get the ball to the area where we have our strength in. And I'm going to say this, guys. I think Ed Ingram has played some good football for Houston. He shut me up, right? But when I look at it and had a conversation around, can this be Tytus Howard's Pro Bowl year, he has not allowed a sack this year. Tytus Howard has not allowed a sack for the Houston Texans this year to this point. Howard has also not allowed a quarterback hit. Tytus Howard has only allowed 5 hurries and 5 pressures on the year, according to PFF. Tytus Howard was expected to be the leader and the man in that locker room. And I think the first couple of games was a little bit difficult for him. But he's also bounced back, and I think he's bounced back extremely well. So he's back at his natural position. He is helping out Ed Ingram. You also look at the flip side of the offensive line in this full picture. Juice Scruggs, I think, has helped out the rookie Ariante Ursery, and the entire offensive line has been helped out by Jake Andrews playing center. This is a improved bunch from 2024. Are the improvements major or minor? That's up for you guys and your eyes to see. But I think in some ways it's minor. I think in some ways it's major. But overall, you look at if this team can lean a lot more on this offensive line. For a lot of you guys, the comments were, if this can be an average offensive line, then the offense should, execute and be better. So if this is a unity line, the offense can lean on, then you're going to look at them being able to run the ball effectively, just 4.5 yards per carry, 4.3, 4.4, 4.5. That also keeps them in advantageous third down positions. And it also makes sure that the second down, which is the money down for Houston's offense this year, right? This is where they have the most yards per play. Then we also keep that in a manageable situation to where they can open up the playbook and get creative, get the ball to their playmakers. But that also helps keep CJ Stroud upright, and it keeps him from having to do a lot of thinking on plays down the field. Did a good job of getting the ball out underneath. Now on the opposite side, we talk about the Houston Texans having their best third down conversion rate on the day against Baltimore. The D-line really impacts team success, and they help get that defense off the field on third down, led by Danielle Hunter and Will Anderson. However, Texan fans, before we dive into that conversation, this is the perfect time to let you guys know that this episode is brought to you by Prize Picks. Every day we make decisions, but on Prize Picks, being right can actually get you paid. Don't miss the excitement of this football season with Prize Picks, where it's good to be right. Playing Prize Picks is such a fun, simple way to add more excitement to football. You just pick more or less on player projections like Josh Allen's passing yards or Saquon Barkley rushing for a touchdown, and you are now in the game. And the new injury reboot feature, have you heard about that? If your player leaves early and doesn't return, it won't count against you. Download the Prize Pick app today and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONNFL in lineups for $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, it's good to be right. Thank you to my everydayers and my newcomers for sticking around and checking out the Locked On Texans podcast as we dive into the impact the Houston Texans defense has had for this Texans team, especially looking at how they've been able to be one of the more dominant defenses on third downs, getting teams off the field, right? In Houston's last 3 games, the defense has allowed the second lowest third down conversion rate in that span, 26.4%. The third down pressure rate, the numbers, for the Houston Texans, 32 pressures, 8 tackles for loss, 7 sacks. Everything starts up front. We talked about the success starting up front from the offensive line. Well, the same thing on the flip side for the defensive line and for the defense altogether, because 32 pressures, 8 tackles for loss, 7 sacks. Great numbers. Will Anderson on third down. He's been an absolute game wrecker. 18 pressures. I just told y'all, 32 pressures on third down. 18 of those are coming from one man. What did Kanye say? No one man should have all that power. Well, it's been Will Anderson, 18 pressures, 3 sacks, 4 tackles for loss. So he has half of the tackles for loss on third downs. Danielle Hunter, third down pressure numbers, 10 pressures, 2 sacks, 2 tackles for loss. So he has a quarter of the tackles for loss. He has almost a quarter of the sacks, and then 10 pressures. What those 2 guys are doing for D'Amico and Matt Burke is sick. They're sick. The defense is sick. And then now you look at a back half of the defense that has better communication, according to what we've heard from D'Amico Ryans coming off of last week after they moved on from C.J. Gardner-Johnson. The unit has been blessed by having 2 maniacs up front, and I mean it in a good way, not a derogatory way, because how they are able to get after the quarterbacks. And with Danielle Hunter, man, like I'm going to get into Will, but Daniil getting after quarterbacks is like an ISO from a combo guard, a New York combo guard ISO in the early 2000s. So I'm talking about like a Marbury or East Coast altogether. Marbury, you look at maybe the DMV and Steve Francis, the franchise. He has a move and a counter move and a move to counter the move for whatever the offensive line is going to try to throw at him to block him. I mean, this guy is completely Daniil may have been he may have been a hooper in another life, but he gets after the quarterback on one side and makes it difficult for a quarterback to get comfortable on third down. And then you have Will Anderson on the opposite side, who I think does a great job in a couple of things. Number one, stopping the run. Number two, setting the edge. Right? You look at how some of these teams operate, and a lot of these big plays nowadays may come from who's getting out on the edge, right? Teams like to attack that. You can't do that with Will Anderson or Daniil Hunter because they allow for everything how they play to be forced back on the inside. So that allows for guys like Sheldon Rankins and Tim Settle, Foley Cows, who I believe has a sack on the year, to really step in and make a play. That also allows for the linebackers to just flow inside the gaps and not have to flow out a lot unless it's in, a play action. But because of how well they play the edge and set the edge, they'll read that play action and maybe make it hard on a tight end to leak out. Maybe take that bump on the running back before they leak out to maybe pick up a play or catch up underneath in the flats. That's how good that duo has been for the Houston Texans. And then that leads to just getting off the field. Like they have set up, this defense is set up for the back seven to just be in spots, to be in place to where the ball is going to kind of come to you. And so you have moments like Jalen Petrie being where he needs to be where the ball is coming to him. Then you have moments like Kamari Lassiter being, in coverage and maybe an end throw coming his way. And now he's able to make a play or Derek Stingley, who I think needs this week of rest to rebound his body, or rehab his body, But Will and Daniil has been phenomenal for the Houston Texans up front. And because of their play, they have allowed for the Houston Texans offense to get the ball more, right? And so you look at how this could be a recipe for success. If Houston's offense is able to continue to have numbers like in the last two games for the Houston Texans, I look at their third down numbers, 7-12 versus the Baltimore Ravens on third down, 6-15. So in the last two games, you look at 13 of 27 on third down, right? If Houston is able to continue that type of success, and the defense is also getting teams off the field, what does that look like? Well, that looks like to the Houston Texans being able to control the game, time of possession. Defense is getting off the field, offense is getting the ball. They're able to convert. They're able to run the ball at a 5.5, 4.5 yards per carry average. They're able to stay in front of the sticks. They're not playing behind the sticks. Again, look at the Baltimore Ravens game. Only three runs, where Houston didn't gain a yard. So you look at Houston being able to control the ball up front, stay in front of the sticks, convert on third down, get to the red zone, where in the last two games, again, albeit against lowly teams and franchises right now, Tennessee is bad, Baltimore's bad, but they go 6 or 7 in the red zone the last two games. You put points on the board. Nick Caley talked about not wanting to settle for 3 as much as they have done, right? That matters. So now you're getting 7. You stay in front of the lead. Houston could put together some games where now the offense is building confidence. The defense is where the defense already is. Again, number 1 points per game defense in the NFL. And when you can't convert on third down, that leads to teams having to punt more. And again, just getting the ball back to the Houston Texans offense. This is the recipe for success for Houston. This is how they climb back out of that hole that they put themselves in. What is the realistic chances Houston can come back in the AFC? Okay, you look at that number, that percentage, making the playoffs. But then also you have to have the conversation of what needs to happen along the way. Seattle when they come back, San Fran when they come back. That's a team that even though that they're beat up, they've been able to put together wins. They're 4-1 on the season. Seattle 3-2 after losing to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers Sunday. Denver, and then November 9th, the 4-1 Jags. As of right now, what Houston is going to need is for their defense to consistently get off the field on third down. Number one, force teams to punt. Number two, that flows back over into how the offensive line gives CJ Stroud time in the pocket. I think Sunday was his best time to throw of the year. They're playing clean football. The pockets are clean, and CJ is getting the ball out quicker. That's important. Establishing the run, that's important. But without those elements, you don't get 4 touchdowns in a game from your quarterback because you don't have the ball enough to get 4 touchdowns. And when he gets the ball back, if they're not running the ball effectively, shout out to Nick Chubb again, 5.5 yards per carry. If they're not keeping it to 2nd and 4, 3rd and 2, 3rd and 3, 2nd and 6, if they're not keeping it to those numbers, then it's another bad day or hard day at the office for CJ Stroud. How Will and Daniil has really impacted the entire game for the Houston Texans on both sides of the ball needs to be talked about a lot more and highlighted, and that's why I wanted to do that on today's show. Because, again, reclaiming the AFC South will be a fight for the Houston Texans, so that's how we'll close out today's episode. Stick around for more Texans talk. But first, Texas fans, it's important to let you guys in on one of the best kept secrets. It's not a secret no more here at the Locked On Network, but Mazda making some of the best cars out there on the market. Mazda craft cars for those who do more than simply move. Mazda delivers confidence with every ride, with more IIHS Top Safety Picks awards than anyone else as of August 2025. You can feel the Japanese craftsmanship in every detail, from the metallic accents to the available Napa leather upholstery. And also, with an all-wheel drive standard in every crossover SUV, you can drive with confidence through almost any season. Like our players, we sweat every detail, because when you make every moment count and when you make every move count, impossible becomes irrelevant. Mazda, move and be moved. Welcome back, Locked On Texas fans. Before we close out the show today, Houston may have a problem. Could be a good problem, could be a bad problem, but it is a problem. Why this could be a good problem? Let's just say Houston strings off some wins. Let's just say Houston goes 2-2 in their next 4 games. And now they're looking at 4-5, being 4-5 on the year. And then after Jacksonville, they get Tennessee. They get Buffalo. That's going to be a tough one. And then their first matchup, Indy. The first matchup against Indy, November 30th. Then the Chiefs, then the Cardinals, then the Raiders, then the Chargers, and then the Colts to end off the year. Coming out of this bye week, Houston has a tough go, y'all. Houston has a tough go. So the conversation of, can Houston reclaim the AFC South? All right. So we look at the 4-1 Jacksonville Jaguars. Who do they have to play? They play Seattle next. They play the Rams. They play the Raiders. They play Houston, the Chargers, the Cardinals, Titans, Colts. They play the Jets in December. They play Denver. Then they end off the year versus the Colts and the Jacksonville Jaguars. Similar schedule for the Colts. Here's the thing, man. Houston has 12 games left on the season. Can we have the conversation about winning the AFC South? We can. But realistically, now that the AFC and the NFC, the NFL has allowed for a 7th playoff seed. That is where I think the focus should be for a lot of us who cover this team. Not to say Houston can't come back and win this division. Anything is possible. They only have one division loss at this point. That's the Jacksonville Jaguars. So it's important that they win their next game versus Jacksonville. But they got to shut out Indy. They cannot lose to Indy. I think if they split against Indy, then that's going to be bad for the Houston Texans. And I think that Houston can just run their way through Tennessee. So I'm not worried about Tennessee. More so I'm worried about going 2-0 versus the Indianapolis Colts. Now, with that said, that is not Houston's only pathway to the playoffs. It is not. It will be that 7 seed. That I think that's very attainable for Houston if they continue to stack what they've been building on. And that has been, like we opened up the show with, offensive line giving your quarterback time in the pocket. Tytus Howard, no sacks on the year, no quarterback hits on the year, only 5 pressures on the year, and then offensive line has played a lot better. Now, granted, when they come back, they play a they play a Seattle Seahawks defense that features a very tough defensive line unit. They got guys like Leonard Williams, Byron Murphy, Jay Reed, DeMarcus Lawrence is on that D-line. They're going to play a tough D-line when they come back, especially those guys that play between the 3 and the 1 technique. So those guards in the center will have their hands cut out for them. But as we see, Houston is utilizing, Blake Fisher a lot. That's going to be important to the offensive line success. The chipping and the all hands on deck from the tight end units and the running backs, that's going to be important. They got to give their quarterback time in the pocket. They got to give their running backs an opportunity to get to the second level without being touched as much at the offense at the line of scrimmage. That's important. But I say all of that to say, can Houston pull it off? Yes, they can. But their next couple of games will be tough. It's going to be tough. This is where we find out what type of team this team is. The changes that they've made, were they for the better? Some of them are already starting to pay off. Moving on from Gardner Johnson, moving on from Cam Robinson, inserting Juice Scruggs. Again, I talked about getting those tackles back at tackle. The rookie Ariante Urcher has played some good football for the Houston Texans. Nobody playing better football on their offensive line right now, better than Tytus Howard, excluding the penalties, which he has to continue to clean up on. I think he has 4 penalties on the year. That number should not increase. And I'm going to be fair and say it should be 3. One of those pancake blocks was called a holding, but we shouldn't see that be an issue for Tytus Howard a lot throughout the year. Houston can get it done. It's going to be tough, right? And we're also going to figure out the adjustments that Danico, Nick Caley, and Matt Burke, how D'Amico is going to work with his coordinators and coaching staff to make adjustments week to week to get the best version of this team. So as we look ahead and we look at the Seahawks game, the adjustment of guarding Jackson Smith and Njigma. Hey, it's going to be very important for Derek Stingley to get healthier. It's going to be very important for Derek Stingley to get healthier. It's going to be very important for those D tackles to play very good up front. And, of course, the edge duos to continue to do what they do. But Houston can do it. Will they? It's going to be a fight. And each and every step of the way, that'll be covered here on the Locked On Texans podcast. Make sure you listen to the Locked On Texans podcast on YouTube, wherever you listen to your pods. Also, follow me on Twitter at John_Hickman12. Until next time, ladies and gents, and Texas fans across the nation, peace.